Where do I put my phone? Good morning, everybody. So, listen, I'm going to give you guys a World War III update because right now, if you live in the world, the reality is you're just not safe. I am going to be talking about what's been happening in Iran. I am going to be talking about what's been happening around the world. But listen, let me first come to this and start the live stream with this. This happened last night, and I almost came down and did another live stream about it. So a man has set himself on fire on a bus. At least 6 dead as man douses himself in petrol and sets himself alight. Right, let me turn that off now before we get the ads. So I am starting with this. And the reason I'm starting with this, because it is important. When we talk about lone wolf attacks, when we talk about, these, these attacks that are foiled by the intelligence service, MI5, MI6, you see all the special forces guys, kicking doors down, and you're like, yeah, great work, guys. And it is, I'm absolutely not taking anything away from them. The problem is a lot of those attacks require very specific kit and equipment, right? So attacks involving firearms generally need firearms, right? I don't think that's controversial. So if you're planning an attack in the United Kingdom or Europe, or the United Kingdom's harder because we don't have firearms. If you're planning an attack in the United Kingdom using firearms, you need to get those firearms from somewhere, right? If you're planning on using explosives, you need to make, and the people that can do that are very limited, right? Not everyone, right? Listen, maybe some schools in Birmingham, in the West Midlands, maybe they teach how to make improvised explosive devices, but generally, right, learning how to make bombs is not part of the curriculum, right? So you have to go abroad, to these training camps overseas. You have to learn how to make things with everyday materials in the United Kingdom. Then you come back with that knowledge, right? And when you do that, you have you'll have a flagged footprint, basically. People will start thinking, oh, this person, oh, hang on, sorry guys, let me turn the chat on. People will start to think, oh, why did this person go to that country? Why did this person go there? What was this person doing over there? And that, and that builds up an intelligence picture. Now, if you guys are just joining, I'm going to start and I'm going to talk about at least 6 dead as a man douses himself in petrol and sets himself alight on a bus in Switzerland. More victims are hurt. Police won't comment on whether it's terrorist or local, report says. So remember, this will probably be reported as a bus fire kills 6 people. Now, if you're there, right, and somebody's dousing themselves with petrol, saying, I don't know, what do you think they'll be saying while they're doing that? All hail Odin, King of the North? I don't know. Whatever those words are that he may or may not be saying, or she, we don't know. Though it says a man, actually. So, how much and how difficult do you guys think it is to get petrol? And then you weigh that and you gauge that with how difficult it is to get firearms, how difficult it is to get, explosive devices. You're now starting to see the real threat, right? You don't need guns and tanks and all the rest of it to fight an asymmetric war in the United Kingdom. So I'm going to read this article. I'll give you guys, then I'll jump onto an update on what we've got in the Middle East. And then I'll give you guys another update on what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. So at least 6 people gone and 5 more injured after a man reportedly doused himself in petrol and set himself on fire inside a bus. This happened in the town of Curzes in western Switzerland around 6:25 p.m. Tuesday, so local time, when a coach carrying passengers suddenly caught fire. Eyewitnesses alleged a man set himself alight inside the vehicle moments before the blaze erupted, although police have not confirmed these claims. Why do you think that is? Videos shared on social media show flames several meters high rapidly engulfing the bus, which belonged to the Postal Service. Separate images from after the incident show the vehicle having been completely gutted by the inferno. Listen, I've been in those situations, right, where you've got to think fast. And you do get this thing called cognitive dissonance. You get this thing called cognitive dissonance. Now, I don't mean to be a douche. I'm absolutely not meaning a douche here, guys. If I was driving down the road and I saw someone with a firearm standing in the middle of the road, I would react a lot differently to most people because I've done that. My eyes will recognize that as a firearm. I will recognize him or her as a threat, and I will take action accordingly. Most people won't, because they've never been in those situations. And we are importing a lot of people who live like that on a daily basis. They come to the United Kingdom now and they want to be peaceful, but, some of that, well. So what I'm getting at here, right? If you're on a bus, right, and somebody pulls a can of petrol out, don't sit there looking at him, right? That window, out of it. Literally, if you're on right, I'm giving you guys this as real world advice, right? And if there's any other security experts and anybody from the government that's watching and they're saying, Sean, you're seeing smash. Okay, right, listen. In this particular scenario, right, if you're sat on a bus and somebody pulls a can of petrol out, fair enough, his car might have broke down, all right? His car might, or her car might have broke down. If they then proceed to douse themselves in petrol, get yourself out that window as quickly as possible. Whatever you need to do to get through that window, get out, literally get off that bus. If you can get past him to the, out the front of the bus, absolutely fine, go for it. If you can't, you go through a window. They usually have the smashy things on the bus. So listen, guys, if you're just joining us, we're talking. I want to go through. I am going to spend a bit of time on this because what this is showing is the devastation of fire. And I think people are under this. People are under this assumption that to wage an asymmetric war, you need rifles and and explosives, which is true. That they definitely help. The reality is, petrol, right? Petrol is readily available. You're not on any watch list if you go and buy some petrol. You're not yet anyway. So you can understand. So you can understand the fire in where was it? Glasgow. The fire the other day in Glasgow. Fire burnt all that. How much do you think that cost? So one clip obtained by local media, an eyewitness is asked what happened. A man set himself on fire, he replies in Albanian. I don't know what that means. He poured gasoline and set himself on fire. You've got to understand what drives a man to do that. At what stage in your life are you on your way back from Morrison's? You're on your way back from Morrison's and you're like, do you know what? Hang on, let me stop off that garage and get some petrol. At what stage of your life? What kind of mental state are you in to do that? Police said they are treating the fire as man-made, but have so far refused to disclose whether it's terror-related. It doesn't matter. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you guys know it doesn't matter, right? And initially when I started to talk about this, I think I got a lot of pushback, but I think people understand now. It really doesn't matter. The police will be trying to play this down as a fire. The police are treating this fire as a man-made fire. Arson, bus fire, health and safety. They're not disclosing anything. This is the police in Switzerland. A spokesperson said, "We cannot comment on that at this stage of the investigation, but the bus was travelling a route from Duddington to Curzes when the fire erupted just before the final stop, according to reports." Maybe he just didn't want to get off. It's understood that the regional transport vehicle operated by Postbus, which is affiliated with the Swiss National Postal Service, 3 of the 5 injured people were taken to hospital, while 2 others were treated at the scene. It remains unclear whether the suspect is among the dead or the wounded. What do you think? You think if you douse yourself in petrol and then... Several people injured and several people are dead, said the police said in earlier statements. Emergency services are currently on the scene. The cause is not known. I mean, the image, can I... Right, I'm going to share this image. Let me share these. In fact, hang on. That one, that one, that one, that one. Yeah. So I've got one. Right. So I've... Right. Right. So let's go. Right. I've got some images to share with you guys. So listen, guys, like I said, I am going to jump onto what's happening in Iran in a second once I've gone through these... Once I've gone through these images with you. I just want everybody to understand, if you set yourself, like, these people, like, you can go to a country and be on no watch list. You can buy a can of petrol. What is it like? Like one of those green little petrol cans. They're like, maybe to fill one of them up, it's like, I don't know, what, a tenner? 5, I don't know, like 5 liters, whatever that is, wherever you go. So let's share these pictures, guys, because the real threat in the United Kingdom across the West is not from armed gangs. It's from lone wolf attacks. It's from sleeper cells that I believe are gearing up right now. I believe they are absolutely strapping up right now. So these are, hang on. So that's a picture, that bus. So this is the bus, allegedly, and for entertainment purposes, reportedly, that was set on fire. So you guys can see from that blaze, this was clearly, in the middle of the bus. So look, if you're at the back of the bus, I will guarantee people at the back of the bus, if you're elderly, if you're one of those people who've never been in a dynamic situation, you'll be looking at this and thinking, ooh, what should I do? Ladies and gentlemen, get the window put through and get out. I promise you, nobody's going to tell you off, right? If there's a man on a bus and he's dousing himself in petrol, shouting, for God for Harry, England and St. George, or, Hail Odin, King of the North, like, or whatever you guys think he might be shouting as he's doing it. Nobody, I promise you guys, nobody is going to get you. You're not going to get in trouble if you put the back window through and get out. All right. You need to act quick. You need to act fast. Like I always say, any critical situation, you need to take, you need to take action early on. So the whole bus is gone. There's nothing left, right? You don't want to be sat on that, right? Can you imagine being sat on that with your kids? You sat with your kids and the flames are coming and you just sat there like a rabbit in the headlights. Yeah. Yeah, they're cooked. Like, I've never seen like a burnt thing. I don't want to. You can imagine, right? You can imagine the families. And for what? For what? So, like I've said many times, all right, I'm going to jump onto what's been happening in Iran now. Like I've said many times, ladies and gentlemen, whether they come out and say this is officially terror related, or whether they just say it's a man of no description with mental health problems, or an unknown reason, it doesn't matter, all right? Because you will find yourselves in these situations, and these situations are now becoming more than a daily occurrence, right? If you take the whole of Europe as a whole, these are happening more than daily now. So, right, ladies and gentlemen, let me give you guys an update on what's happening in the Middle East, because this is directing everything. Everything's coming from the Middle East right now, guys, okay? Remember, we have this tippy-toey thing where everybody's trying to play things down. Nobody is ever going to say that we are in a hot war. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. It's going to be limited military strikes. It's going to be special military operations. It's going to be whatever the words need to be to lower public outrage. So the United States-Israel war on Iran, it has entered its 12th day. We're on what we're on. I think, the 11th, I think, of March. It started on the 28th. So, 12th day. With a conflict showing absolutely no signs of abating. What began on February the 28th, as we all said on this channel, ladies and gentlemen, we said it was going to start on February the 28th. Years ago, we said that. As a large-scale joint air campaign aimed at dismantling Iran's missile capability, naval forces, defensive industry, and nuclear ambitions, has escalated into a sustained aerial bombardment and retaliatory exchanges, causing mounting humanitarian fallout and regional ripples. The Iranian authorities, might I add, report that the United States airstrikes have targeted nearly 10,000 civilian sites across the country since the war started, resulting in more than 1,300 civilian deaths. Now, they are figures cited by Iran. Like I always say, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the fog of war right now. So any numbers that come out of Iran, any numbers and anything that comes out at the moment, you really do need to take it with a pinch of salt. Oh, the United States blew up a school and there's 10,000 school children. Yeah, okay. Okay, right. Okay, you got any evidence? No, okay, right. These claims include deliberate hits on homes, healthcare facilities, schools, and other non-military infrastructure. Accusations the United States and Israel have rejected or described as collateral from strikes on military targets. Independent verification remains challenging amid the restricted access to Iran. However, reports from Al Jazeera, Reuters, and the UN highlight the growing humanitarian crisis in Iran. Toxic smoke from bombed oil facilities, mass displacement, disrupted medical supplies and facilities, and warnings of environmental damage. Listen, if you live in the United Kingdom, who's with me on this one, thinking that we are very soon going to be taking a shit ton of Iranian refugees? Does anyone think that? Does anyone think that we're going to, there's going to be secret flights coming in, landing at various parts in the United Kingdom with, Iranian refugees? So overnight, last night and this morning, I guess, powerful explosions struck Tehran, including the Mehrabad International Airport, Tehran's main domestic hub, where fires engulfed part of the facility and military aircraft reportedly destroyed. Residential districts in Tehran also saw heavy bombardment, described by residents as some of the most intense yet, which comes from what Pete Hegseth said, right? With rescue teams from the Iranian Red Crescent pulling bodies from rubble in hit buildings, at least 6 people were confirmed transcending into a beam of light in one such incident, with broader civilian tolls rising daily. Iran's response has been fierce. The Islamic Republic launched what it's called the 37th wave of retaliatory strikes, described as one of the most intense to date, using heavy ballistic missiles alongside long-range drones and other missile variants. These barrages, lasting over 3 hours in multi-layered salvos, targeted Israeli cities, US bases, and other assets in the Middle East. While many were intercepted by Israeli air defenses and allied systems, some impacts were reported in Tel Aviv. So, if anybody thinks this is going to last at least 3 years, at the very minimum, this is going to last 3 years, and there has to be boots on the ground. So regardless, all right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you what's coming, right? I don't waffle about what's happening now. Today's news is old news if you're on this channel. And on that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're on right now and you've not hit those buttons down below, like, comment, subscribe, like bell notification, just hit those buttons down there, guys. Really help me out. If you want to know what's happening in the future. So these strikes have driven a spike in global energy prices as fears grow over potential disruptions to the Strait of Hormuz. And I will speak separately about the Strait of Hormuz after I've jumped onto the chat, because the Iranians have been laying They've not been laying landmines in the sea. They've been laying mines in the sea. Does not matter now. It does not, whether they've got 1, 10, 1,000. If the Iranians say if the Iranians manage to get some mines in that area, nobody's going to sail through it. What insurance company, right, is going to say, yes, we will sail through there, even though we know there are mines bobbing about? Like, who's going to do that? Like, who? Nobody's going to do it. So I will talk about that in depth, what we know so far. So global energy prices have absolutely spiked. They're going up every day. Every day they're going up, guys. On the 28th, I said to everyone when we did the live stream on the 28th, I said, listen, ladies and gentlemen, go and get your petrol and your diesel now. Fill your jerry cans up. Don't do what my dad did. I phoned my dad the other, couple of days, I can't remember when it was, a couple of days ago. I said, Dad, he says, oh, I'm not going to get it now. It's already gone up. I said, yeah, it's going to keep going up. So oil benchmarks have fluctuated sharply, with recent drops tied to Trump's comments suggesting the conflict might ramp up soon. But volatility remains high, meaning higher petrol costs at the UK pumps, which means broader economic pressure. Everything. And, and if you're sat there and you think, oh, do you know what? I don't have a car. Doesn't matter, because you know what? Do you eat? I like to eat. I like to eat food. It's all I've been eating lately. The food that you eat gets delivered to the supermarket in trucks. Those trucks run on diesel. That diesel comes from the petrol station, fuel station. And if their prices go up, your prices go up. And you will get something called price gouging. So the Raven haulage, right? Raven haulage that delivers fresh milk to Asda, right? I see the war in Iran and I'm like, oh, everybody's raising their prices. Right. My prices have gone up 5%. I raise my prices 10% and say, sorry, guys, it's the war in Iran. So then I'm delivering to Tesco. I'm delivering to Asda at a 10% premium now. So obviously what cost £100 now costs £110. Asda do the same. Oh, my prices have gone up 10%. So I'm going to put the prices up 15%. So you at the supermarket are paying exponentially more because of price gouging. And that's here now. You guys can see it. In Washington, political scrutiny is intensifying with the United States casualties rising. I think we are looking at 7 US servicemen. I'm going to call them servicemen because that's what I call them. They're servicemen. Whether it's a man or a woman, it's a serviceman. Around 140 wounded. Lawmakers are pushing for a public hearing on the war's objectives, strategy, and endgame. The Trump administration sent mixed signals. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and I love Pete Hegseth. He's got fantastic hair, and I absolutely respect his hair. I think he'll be fantastic to go drinking with. Vows unrelenting intensity, while the president is hinting of swift conclusion, fueling debate over whether this regime change, or by another name, is a limited military operation. So you see the mission creep. So what happens is, in any conflict, you get mission creep. You go in there as humanitarian, then you end up fighting the war, right? You start with an aerial bombardment campaign, and then you end up changing a regime and having boots on the ground. Now, from a British perspective, the main implications are energy, potential threats to the United Kingdom from lone wolf, sleeper cells, terrorist organizations. With this crisis deepening, and it is deepening, regardless what people are saying, you know, you've just heard there that Pete Hegseth said he's going to increase intensity. The people in Tehran are saying it's to be in the most intense aerial bombardment yet. So regardless to what people are saying, look at what they're doing. You know, don't listen to what they're saying. Look at what they're doing. There's no visible path at the moment to a ceasefire, other than there's no visible path, right, to a ceasefire. And the longer this goes on, the heightened those, the more heightened these things are. Right, listen, guys, I'm going to jump onto the chat. And then we will talk about what's been happening with these mines that have been laid in the in the Strait of Hormuz. Right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Right. Listen, guys, I'm literally just jumping. I'm on the bottom of the chat, and I'll scroll up and then I'll come down. So again, I do apologize if I'm missing anyone's comment. Caveman is saying finger boat. Laughing. I don't know what that means. That must be a code that have you guys on the chat started talking like AI now? You've got your own code words and stuff. James Broke is saying Trump is saying the war is almost over. I reckon it could have just begun. If Iran keeps a chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz, it will cause chaos. Yeah, it absolutely will. I'm going to talk more about the Strait of Hormuz in a little bit. But they've got these landmines down there now. So not landmine. Right. Okay. Right. If you hear me say landmines, I don't mean landmines, right? I mean sea mines. They've got these sea mines now, and I will come on to this in a second, but they're laying sea mines in the Strait of Hormuz. So how do you defeat a sea mine? How do you defeat a sea mine? Do you wait until it's run out of food? Do you cut the logistic supply chain? You can't do anything to a mine. All right. I've never come across sea mines, but I've dealt with a lot of land mines, and they are terrifying. So if, I'm going to come on to in a minute, the Iranians have managed to get off some sea mines in the Strait of Hormuz, that's it. That is it. Nobody's gonna let a ship go through. Dan Johnson is saying, don't forget all the plastic packaging, all the plastic components in technology. Yeah, you know what they are. Yeah, all plastics, oils, lubricating oils. They are all byproducts or secondary products, I guess, of oil refinement in when they're doing fractional distillation. Vanilla Chimp 90 is saying MREs, so meals ready to eat, are £30. That seems expensive. I thought there was like 7. And Caveman is saying the United States was blowing the hell out of their boats yesterday. They're used to it. They're just not hauling fentanyl this time. They're hauling mines. Now they're at the bottom. I will come on to that later, guys. I'll come on to that later. Yeah, the price of everything is rocketing. Deeb, post again. Right, have I missed it? Do I need to get Debbie Deeb's post? I just hope no one turns the lights off for good. It's getting darker by the day. It is getting darker by the day. Right, I'm gonna jump. Oh, hang on. Sean, I found out the English are more clairvoyant, and that's clear on YouTube in the way they see through every liar. Maybe I do have mystical. Do you think I have mystical powers? The mystical powers of Raven? I wouldn't say. I don't think I'm clairvoyant or anything. You can just see what's happening, right? And if you look at if you look at everything as a spectacle, right? You look at every time somebody a world leader gives a speech. Okay, right? They're giving a speech. It's a great, it's a great piece of theater. It's great. It's entertaining. What's really happening, right? What's really happening? Like the United States are talking, Donald Trump's talking about this war coming to it, and he's got to do that. He's got to do that to calm the markets down. The United States are talking about, Donald Trump, is talking about closing this war down and it de-escalating. Well, all the time, they're sending more aircraft to the United Kingdom. Those aircraft are getting tooled up. They're now flying sorties. So, you've got to understand there's things that people say and things that people do. Debbie Doobs is saying, Sean, what do you think will happen on Sunday in London? So for those of you guys who don't know, there's supposed to be the Al-Quds. Is it Al-Quds? I think it's Al-Quds. Basically, there's this pro-Iranian march, and it's scheduled for this Sunday. And I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. I think the march will go. So it's been cancelled by the police. I think it will go ahead because let's face it, nobody listens to the police anymore. Except from me, of course. I listen to the police and I abide by the laws. I think it will go ahead. I think you're going to see trouble. I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see a lot of. Obviously, let me. Depending on the weather, let's see what the weather's going to be like. If it's going to be dry. Okay, so it's gonna be relatively dry on Sunday in London. So it's going to be relatively dry on Sunday in London. There is a chance of rain, however, it's not heavy rain. So yeah, you will get a lot of people out on the streets, obviously going through this march. Is it Al-Quds or Cuts? I think it's Al-Quds. And they're just gonna, they're just gonna have that march. They're gonna be met by a counter march. Now, this could be the first clash that we see this year. I mean, like a real clash, because you've got thousands of because it's like pro-Iranians fighting pro-Iranians in Britain, So you've got So you've got the Islamic pro-Iranians and you've got the Persian pro-Iranians. I think that's a better way of describing it. So you've got a huge, Persian pro-Iran group who have been, cheering these protests, and they've been thinking it's fantastic that the regime has pretty much, collapsed. And then you've got this pro-Islamic Iranians who aren't really made up of Iranians. They're made up of just other people. They've not clashed yet. And I do think that they will clash at some point. There's a lot of tension. Can you imagine the tensions that are going to be on the streets? So in direct response, I think the march will go ahead. I don't think people will. I don't think people care. I think the march will go ahead. The Al-Quds March will go ahead. The police will try and make arrests. They will be massively lenient. And well, listen, you've seen the images of if they ride on horses, right? If they go there on horses, the police can't do anything. Paul O'Sullivan is saying America is deploying 3 demining ships, but they will be destroyed. Yeah, so I'll jump onto this in a second. We're talking about the demining operation, all right? You can't do a demining operation when you're still in a hot war. It just doesn't work, guys. There's too much logistics, and it's all well and good, America, the United States saying they're going to send all their demining things down there. It doesn't matter, right? You can't do demining if you're getting attacked, right? Right, I'm literally going to jump to the bottom, guys. Yeah, so I think I've answered that. Pink Princess GB with a beautiful thumbnail. So I do think that protest going to go ahead. I don't see how that protest can be, how they can be stopped. Debbie Doobs is saying I'll be glued to the live streams all day. Yeah, I think you're going to see fireworks, and then you're going to get the all these auditors that go down there, and they'll be filming everything. I just hope young Bob's okay. I do. I hope young Bob obviously young Bob will be down there. I just hope he's okay. Right, listen. So let me talk about now what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz, because there has been I'll give you guys the latest developments, right? So regardless what people are saying, regardless, about what kit and equipment people are going to send, these things have a physical limitation, right? A mine clearing ship is vulnerable to drone attacks, right? And if these so what this means is for these mine clearing ships to go into the Strait of Hormuz, they have to be totally protected. So what that means is that is a total military occupation of that south. In fact, let me get it on the map. Sorry, guys, give me a second. Map. What am I doing? Where are we? Okay, so right, let's zoom in. Let me share this with you guys. Fact, hang on, give me a sec. Right, I'm going to share this map with you. How do I share? Sometimes I forget how to share. Right, there we are. Okay. So for those of you guys who don't know, this is the Strait of Hormuz. This little, I wish I could use the other map because I can draw on the other map. I can't draw on this one. So obviously you've got United Arab Emirates, you've got Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, all this northern region. That's Iran and Pakistan to the east. So this is the area here, right? This is the Strait of Hormuz. So for any ships to get through there and get through the mines. So if there is mines, and I'll give you guys an update. I'll give you guys an update on that in a second. But what that means is you have to take this whole region. So Bandara, Baz, all these little towns here, and I know that looks like these look like little towns on the map, but trust me, taking these towns is difficult. So I just don't see it, guys. I really don't see it. I don't see the United States military being able to push mine clearing, being able to push mine clearing vessels through there. It just seems absurd. Yes, it is only like 50 kilometers or whatever it is, but still 50 kilometers is a long way to be cruising around with mine clearing vessels. So it makes no sense. You would literally have to obliterate that whole northern region, well, southern region, I guess, of Iran. Maybe even take control of that island, put boots on the ground on that island. So I don't see any mine clearances going through there. It makes no sense at all. However, let me give you guys an update, because the Strait of Hormuz regarding mines. Now, these center on the escalating naval actions amid the ongoing US-Israel war with Iran. Like I've just shared with you guys, the Strait of Hormuz, it's a very narrow choke point, which 1/5, 20% of the world's oil transits through. That is ridiculous. That is enough to cause a global recession. So, key updates. Iran has begun laying mines. That's the reality. So, the fact that they've begun, and I know that there's been airstrikes. And, there's claims, that some of these were taken out. But the fact that the Iranians have got in there and managed to lay some, how do you think the insurance companies are gonna? Can you imagine, right? Can you imagine phoning your insurance company up, right? And you say to your insurance company, I don't know, go compare, or I don't know. I know that's not, whatever. You ring your insurance company up and you're like, I don't know, Sheila's Wheels or whatever. You ring up your insurance company and you say, hello, mate. Yeah. I'm going to be driving through a minefield, but I don't think there's many mines. And the insurance company's going to say, come again. Yeah, I'm going to be driving through a minefield, but there's not many mines. Well, how many? What do you mean not many? How many is not many? I don't know. Oh, well, where are you driving? Through one of the narrowest checkpoints in the one of the narrowest choke points in the world, and I'm going to come under indirect fire as well. Like, what do you think the insurance company is going to say? It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So, like I said, Iran has begun laying sea mines. US intelligence sources, now this was reported by CNN, CBS, various other mainstream media outlets have been reporting that Iran has started deploying sea mines, naval mines, I don't know what they called, in the Strait of Hormuz in the recent days. The effort is described as limited so far, with only a few dozen mines laid. But Iran retains 80 to 90% of its small boat mine laying vessels, giving it the capacity to deploy hundreds more rapidly. This is seen as a huge retaliation escalation to choke global energy flows. So remember when I said the prices are just going to go up, and that's the reality. It doesn't matter what people say. Look, is the oil flowing? No, prices are going to go up. Now, the United States have, in direct response, U.S. Central Command announced that they have, U.S. forces have eliminated 16 Iranian mine-laying vessels. Now, these mine-laying vessels, they're very small. They're like, I'd say they're like day boats. Like a day yacht, you're going to go out there with your mates, just a couple of, like literally for a day. very small, very fast. So again, we're coming down to this. We're coming down to this new method of warfare now, where you could speculate that the missiles used to take down those boats cost more than the boats themselves, right? Now, there was footage released that that's been showing strikes on. I think they showed 9 visible vessels in the images that are being shown. Many were moored or inactive. Officials described this as proactive to neutralize Iran's mine capability before it scales up. However, the high-end reports are that 16 is the number of vessels the US has destroyed. President Trump posted on his Truth Social, and I'll share this with you guys in a second, demanding any mines be removed immediately with threats of military consequences at a level never seen before. Okay, so I love Donald Trump. I think he's a great guy. Got fantastic hair. You've got to understand, when you're in a hot war, you kind of can't do anything else. You can't do anything. There's nothing you can threaten. When you're in a hot war with somebody, you can't threaten them with more war. Right, Iran, stop doing that or there'll be more war. I mean, you're literally in a hot war with them. There's nothing else you can do. It's like why the Ukrainians, they're like, they don't care about what the Russians say. They're in a hot war. There's like literally there's nothing more you can do. If you're doing everything, it's like imagine 2 MMA fighters, right, being in a ring. And you've got 2 fighters in the ring. And I don't know who, like John Jones and his little snappy leg kick. Or whatever, and somebody says, stop kicking me with that leg, or you're going to get some of this. And you'd be like, you do realize we're in a fight. You do realize we're in a fight, so you can't threaten me because we're in a fight, right? You can't threaten me. You can't threaten someone with violence when you're in a fight. It doesn't work like that. But Donald Trump has been saying that the Iranians best stop it immediately, or there will be military consequences at a level never seen before. Now, the broader threats are the prices, basically. And we have spoken about this. Now, look, the fact, and I think it's a fact, the fact that the media are reporting, the reality doesn't actually matter. Whether whether the Iranians have managed to lay mines or not, it doesn't really matter because it's been reported on the media. It's been reported on the world press. So nobody, absolutely nobody is going to, no insurance company rather, is going to let those people go through, let those ships go through with oil. Not going to happen. No way, Bob. No way. Not going to happen. So while there's this political bolstering and he said this and she said that and we're going to this is like the immigration problem in the United Kingdom, right? But like in an opposite scenario, because in the Strait of Hormuz, there are no boats and nobody can get the boats to start. And in the in the English Channel, we've got a shitload of boats and nobody can get the boats to stop. So it doesn't matter what laws, legislations, policies, doesn't matter what assets the United States send down there, without taking that whole southern region, without taking, let me share it again, without taking this whole southern region of Iran. So without taking literally this whole Bandar Abbas, this island, this whole region, without being able to control that, not going to happen, guys. Not going to happen in a million years. So if oil is to start flowing again, the Saudi Arabians, I do think it'll be the Saudi Arabians because they're losing a ton of money. The Saudi Arabians, that's where their oil goes. So they're losing a ton of money themselves. So I think there's a strong case for Saudi Arabian ground forces to move into Bandar Abbas. That's what I think. That's what I would speculate is coming. I'm pretty convinced that the United States military, army, Marines, whatever, ground forces, boots on the ground. I don't think they're going to go in, guys. They learned a lot of lessons from Iraq and Afghanistan. They don't want to. You don't want to do that. It's just going to be a quagmire. However, the Saudi Arabians, they're in a better position, right? They are literally here. There. The Saudi Arabians are there. So it would make absolute sense for the Saudi Arabians to push in, take Bandar Abbas, and then clear the Strait of Hormuz. But until you see that happening, it's not going to happen. It's absolutely not. They're not going to start oil flowing. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, let me... Band again is saying, recap, wars and rumors of wars. Check. Volcanoes and earthquakes up. Check. Leaders exposed as evil. Check. The book of Revelation has started to happen. Yes. So the other part of this live stream on the, on my thumbnail, and I don't know where I'm going with this. It's very difficult to not see the biblical context of things that are happening now, biblical end times and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know whether somebody's pulling my leg and they just want me to think this is, or whether this is actually happening. So I don't know. But listen, let me, I want to go through this again because, listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you are on and you don't know, there was, there was a fire yesterday. Let me share this with you guys because this is important because if you're worried about attacks coming to the West, coming to the United Kingdom, this is a sign of things to come. At least 6 dead as man douses himself in petrol and sets himself alight on a bus in Switzerland. So the reason I talked about this at the beginning of the live stream, and we're coming up to the end, and I just want to go through this again. All right. There are varying layers of attacks that are going to happen. And I'm not saying this is an attack. I'm just saying, right? A lot of these attacks get foiled. I shared with you guys a video yesterday. UK Special Forces making a vehicle intercept in Bradford. These intercepts and these high-level, high-profile stops, which is what they are. First of all, right, if we have special forces guys making arrests on the streets in the United Kingdom, that means that threat is so high. In fact, guys, I don't know if you realize this or not. Yesterday when I was sharing with you guys the footage of the arrest in Bradford, and I said, not a chance they're police, not a chance in a million years they're police. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but when you have to bring in special forces to make an arrest, that means that the threat of those people, the police can't deal with it. And you've probably got 6 teams that are workable right now. So you've only got 6 teams that can carry out those tasks. Yes, there's more people than that, but you can't have all those people working because they'll be on reserve in case there's an emergency. So you have to have some sort of reserve. So what I'm getting at here is from the video I shared with you, and I'll come on to the fire in a sec. From the video I shared with you guys yesterday, and I don't think there's anybody with any understanding of the military and working with the military or being in the military and the police, anybody who understands what they're looking at, they'll say that that's not police. So if that is the case, that we have UK Special Forces now actively making arrests on the streets of the United Kingdom, that would mean that there is a significant threat raised, right? Now, these people are one way to track terrorists, right? You track terrorists by mobile phones, forensic data, cyber interrogation. You build up a network pattern, right? You build up a network pattern. So, terrorist A, man A is Bravo 1. Let's get professional, guys. Okay, Bravo 1 is attempting to buy firearms from the black market in Germany and smuggle them back to the United Kingdom, right? So you track that person, then you arrest him, right? Bravo 2 is trying to acquire knowledge and facilitation equipment to build explosive devices in the United Kingdom. Okay, right, we understand who he's talking to. We understand where he's getting this stuff from. Right, we can go and intercept him. We can arrest him. They're the high-end arrests. If somebody goes and buys petrol and then decides to set themselves on fire, how do you stop that? Where's the special forces? Like, you got special forces guys hiding in every garage. Remember, I've just told you there, you've probably got 6 teams. You've probably not got 6 teams. You've probably got 3 teams. You might have, I'll go with 6. I said 6. So you've got 6 teams that can do these arrests, right? So that's what? Very few people. Are you going to have like a special forces operator at each garage? Right, he got a can of petrol. I'm going to follow him home. Right, he's on the bus. Yeah, I'm following him. Yeah, no. Oh, right, yeah, he's broke down. Right, I'm coming back. It's not going to work. It's not feasible. So when we're talking about lone wolf attacks, and people, there's stabby, there's rammy, there's now Bernie. There's now Bernie because that is a thing that's happening, guys. The new, it literally is. It's Bernie. It is absolutely Bernie. Right. Right, there's some comments on here I can't repeat. EM is saying maybe the US will invade the United Kingdom next, seeing that you guys are just giving your country away. Listen, if you've been on this channel for a while, I said a long time ago that I'm seeing the footsteps where the United States does come and take Britain. But when it gets to that stage, most people will be asking for it. Most people will be like, yes, we actually want that. And this is part of subversion. We are heavily destabilized. We've been destabilized. We've already been demoralized, and we are going to head into the crisis phase, like very soon. Very soon, we're going to be in that crisis phase. And I don't see, and jump into the war in Europe right now, the war in Ukraine. The Europeans, NATO, the Europeans without the United States can defeat the Russians, but they won't because of bureaucracy. That's what it's going to come down to, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to come down to bureaucracy. You're going to have private soldiers on the front line, and they're going to need something, right? They're going to need something. They're going to need, just say drones. It's probably not, whatever. They're going to need something, right? And this is how ridiculous it is in the United Kingdom at the moment. When they're bidding for these contracts, right, the military are so tight. Yes, you all need to be cleared, and it all needs to be secret, and everything needs to be... Okay, right, fair enough, right, okay, I got you, right? It will come down to something so stupid as when that product, when they were bidding for that product, they said as part of the contract that the person who takes them from the conveyor, I don't know how, takes the product and packages them, puts them in the box, has to be secret cleared. Because you don't want anybody, you don't want anybody who's not secret cleared putting them things into the boxes, right? Because that could, and the military will be like, yes, everybody is secret cleared. Yes. It's going to get down to something as ridiculous as this. There will only be one guy who is cleared to put those items in the box and put the sellotape over the top of it, but he'll be sick. And because of contracts and bureaucracy, nobody else can do it. So they're going to have to wait for that guy to recover from his sickness. And again, that guy, he's done nothing wrong. He's just been poorly, right? He's been poorly. He's been laid in a poorly bed eating oranges. All the while, the knock-on effect on the front line is the Russians are pushing and pushing and pushing because they don't have any of this bureaucracy. They don't have any of this red tape. Right, just jumping to the bottom. Mike is saying, you're wishing and hopeful, but that's not true reality at play. You have to be willing to lay your life down for your country. Okay, good point, Mike Hunt. The country's been demoralized and destabilized so much, nobody's willing to do that. You know, why would you be willing to do that? For what country? Jeff is saying free Joey Barton. I don't know even know who that is. I have no idea who Joey Barton is. The real sassafras is saying, could you imagine 250 years later, America, US rather takes England? The irony of that. No, I do think that's coming. I do. I absolutely 100% believe that is coming. Boggy is saying, Google everything Raven says and you will uncover a shell. Okay, I don't know what that means, but good luck. In fact, hang on. Where's Boggy? I can't find Boggy's comment, but whoever just commented that, what I think you should do is go back and watch my earlier videos. Like, go right down and watch my earlier videos. They're not the best. The camera's terrible. The sound quality is not that good. It's a bit better than, it's not as good as this. I mean, this camera's not the best. But I tell you guys what's coming. Row Pro is saying, interesting, the live is buffering, must have triggered the bots. XRP, guys, good luck. This goes back to Bretton Woods after World War II. I don't know what that means. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to start to close this down. I am. Right, Bill X with a Ferrari 44 cap. Are you trying to? I don't know if Bill X is trying to send me a message. Shit, pirates? Pirates? I don't know. Pirates? Are we saying we're going to go pirates? We're having I don't know. I don't know what that means. Right, listen, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, let me wrap this up. Okay, let me wrap this up for you. Okay, this is the World War III update. Is anybody under an illusion that it's not started? I don't think anyone's safe now. If we are having people, in fact, let me get these pictures up. If we are having now in Europe, in Switzerland, people just setting fire to themselves, like, How do you deal with that? How does the police counter that if people just decide to set themselves on fire? You know, how, like, literally, how do you deal with that from a security standpoint? You can't. You cannot deal with that. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to have, you know, a fire warden on every bus. You're going to have an armed police officer on every bus. Like, okay, right. Okay, so buses are safe now. Okay, right. They're just going to do it in a town centre. They're just going to do it in a shopping mall. They're just going to do it. And, you know, you've got to understand these people that are saying, well, this person is clearly not, you know, he's clearly not of any, you know, he's clearly got mental health problems. However, that is a big, that's a big thing, right? Now, virtually impossible to stop these attacks, guys, okay? So you now have to worry about stabby, rammy, blowy, and burny, and maybe even shooty in the United Kingdom. And what I'm getting at here is you don't need these sophisticated systems, weapons, explosives, night vision goggles to cause chaos and carnage and mayhem. You absolutely don't need that. Now, this particular attack took 6 people, and I think 5 people were injured. So nobody's safe. Nobody's safe. You know, whether this is lone wolf attack, whether this is terrorist organization, it doesn't matter. You know, if you find yourself in that problem, just throw yourself out, literally throw yourself out the window. Smash the glass and get out the window. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to close this down, but don't worry. I'm going to be back on, I think, before 12. And I'm going to be talking about UFOs, UAPs, and this whole movement that we've got right now for disclosure, whether it's ancient technology, forbidden space stuff, or whatever. There's been a load of stuff happening behind the scenes, but it's just not being talked about because everybody's talking about what's happening in Iran. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys are on, can you do me a real big favor? Hit those buttons down below, like, comment, subscribe, bell notification. Really helps me out when I do that, when you do that, guys. For the members, I'll be doing members-only videos for you guys later on. And on that bombshell, ladies and gentlemen, I bid you good morning, and I'll see you later.